Welcome and hello. Are you ready for part 2 of the big fireplace build? What we are going to need is we're going to need our fireplace, and if you missed the first part where we built the structure, feel free to go back in and take a look at that. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need tons and tons of cereal box or cracker box cardboard. I keep the scraps from like everything, so you can see I got tons and tons of it. One of the first things you're going to need to do, as we've discussed before, is you're going to need to sand off the back if it's not already done. So I've sanded all the scraps that I had, and this is probably, I don't know, this could be more than I need, but that's a good thing. So the next thing I need to do is I've done research, and I'm going to show you some of these images here of fireplaces, real fieldstone fireplaces. If you notice, they can vary widely. So the stones can be set like right next to each other, super tight, so there's no need for grout. Or they could be separated and quite large grout lines can be present. It just depends. But they all start with something called a keystone. The keystone, it sits right here in the middle front of the opening. And it usually comes out in a slightly diamond shape. So when I'm doing a fireplace like this, I always start with the keystone. And then I do the outside. Then I do these edges right here. All these edges on the front. Then basically from there, it's like a puzzle. You just start filling in the spaces. That is what I did with my prototype. As you can see on the prototype, I actually brought stones up to the edge on the top. They didn't really wrap around. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. So this is how I create those stones. So let's see, this one looks like it's already started. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, and then I'm just going to try and give it a more of a natural edge right here by just chipping away at it. And then I'm just going to kind of give it an oddball kind of wonkiness to it. So now it looks like that. And this, we could go even bigger though. So let's set this little guy aside. And let's take a much bigger, larger piece here. And let's just go really, really big. As you see, I'm just kind of cutting a rough potato-y oval shape. So there, now we get this, which is, as you can see, considerably larger. And for the size and impact that we're going for on our fireplace, I'm thinking this guy might actually be a better size. Now, the good thing about this method is I could keep chipping away at this if I wanted to and make it look any way I want, but I'm okay with this. So another inspiration photo, and if you could see, a lot of fieldstone is like, I don't know what type of rock it is, some kind of a sandstone or a slate or a shale. And all of these stones, they have layers to them. And when those layers chip or weather away, you end up with these small creases and ledges in the stone. And you want to imitate that using your cardboard. And the way you do that is you're going to kind of just bend it like this, and then you're just going to twist. And look at that. You have ledges and creases that look like fieldstone. And then I can come up here and I could just, you're just kind of pushing and folding it in. Not all the way though. And then you kind of bring it in and twist. And you get these lovely cracks. And they're very random. And you don't want to do it too much because this is actually layers laminated. And the layers can start to pop apart, but that's not a big deal. Don't worry about it if it happens, because when you glue these things down, you're going to be gluing all that back together, so it's not a big deal. But anyway, so voila, you've suddenly created a fieldstone. Because as you do this, this cardboard is actually to become more and more flexible, and it'll be easier for you to bend it around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to try and line that tip up with the edge of that ledge we put in there, something like that. So if we go like that and then up, you can get a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. So I am going to get my glue ready because we're going to, as we create these, you could create a whole pile of them, but I like to do it this way because I like to try and kind of make them fit together like a puzzle piece. So I tend to create them as I go. That may or may not be the best route to take, but that's just the way I do it. You guys can figure out how you like to do it. Now you are going to get messy doing this. At least I do. I don't know how neat you guys are, but me. So I'm just going to start by putting some glue down right there. Drop it in my water. Then I'm going to get, it's hard to do this so you guys can see. I'm going to line that up right like that, and I'm just going to press it in. And would our binder clips work here? Maybe. Let me go ahead. I'm going to get some more glue. And I'm going to glue the back side of my stone. And once again, if glue gets on the front of the stone, it is not a problem. Every little bit of glue you put on this thing is only going to make it stronger. You know, I'm pinching it pretty hard so that it wraps around like I want it to. I'm pushing it pretty hard to get it to stay down here. So we want it to wrap around under like that. I don't know how well you can see that with the light, but anyway, yeah. So that's what we're doing. And honestly, this right here is probably the most difficult area also to do, trying to get it to wrap. So if we took this stone and we would just look at it and say, oh, you know, hey, it kind of matches up on that side, or it looks pretty good right here. So what you might want to do is decide where you like it, wrap it around, and then you can come out and just bend it like that. And then, you know, do your bend, twist, bend and twist. And this is a rough patch. I'm not too worried about it. Just kind of incorporate it into the quote-unquote stone look. Make sure I fold this up real good. And then when I come back in, leave a little space between the two, and you've got your second rock. Now, when you do this, you might decide, well, there's going to be this narrow spot here, and then the next rock is going to have to compensate. Well, I don't like that. Not a problem. You got a pair of scissors. Voila. There you go. And then you got a much more, I don't know if my hand's in the way, but you got a much more even, less awkward space. So let's put some glue on the back of this little guy, and we're going to just do that basically all the way around the opening of our fireplace. Okay, so here we are. We have finished the fireplace opening with all our stones, and now it's time to do these front side edges. I just went ahead and cut the first stone, and I'm just gonna, you know, kind of make it sort of match the edge of that stone, and it's gonna wrap around the side just like that. I don't know if you can see it, how well you can see it. It's just gonna wrap around the side like that. And we're just going to do that all the way up. And what I try to do is I'm going to do that, and then the next stone, I'm going to try and cut it to fill in as much of this white space as possible. Maybe to right up about there. And then the next stone will do the same thing. It's going to come in and maybe to right about there. So let's go ahead and start with this little guy. Let's do our little twist and bend method to get those fieldstone-like creases in it. This is by no means the only way to go about doing this. If you've seen a technique that you think is really, really good, then let me know down in the comments. So this is where it's going to get a little tedious because you can't clamp this. So you are going to have to hold and press for a minute or two until the glue can take hold. Okay, that's holding pretty good, I hope. So let's go on to the next. Oops, and I'm making a mess already. So let's go on to the next, and I'm just going to take this scrap, and I'm keeping, you know, fairly good sized scraps, and I'm even keeping some of these smaller ones. you never know when you're going to need just a small, I'm going to try to avoid that, but you never know when you might just need a small piece to kind of fit in. And I can come in and take something a little bigger like this and just kind of eyeball it and think, okay, well, what if I go ahead and just cut that corner off so that it kind of meets up with that, and then I have this other one over here. So what if I kind of just cut it like that so that it goes like that, and I'll maybe take off a little bit more, make it a little more rough. It's just not quite doing it for me. So then you would narrow it down like that. Be like, oh, I can push that in a little more, but then I'm catching it right here. And just take some of that off. And then, you know, you end up with something like that. I mean, I'm actually pretty satisfied with that. And then on this side, because there's no stones to worry about yet. On that side, I just give it a potato shape. And then I go like this, and I'm like, okay, I want it to be somewhat like that right there. Then I try to hold it as best I can, and then I bend it. And that's just going to give me my initial bend. And then I go like that. And then I refit it to make sure that it didn't go off too far. That's looking pretty good. And then you do your twist and fold method to get those creases in there. Now, one of the things you don't want to get too trapped in is if you look, I've now got another area where it's going to be almost like slanted down to fit. Kind of straighten it up a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to kind of just angle, and you know, the whole thing's going to kind of get a little strange. Yeah. And these edges, you don't want them too sharp, so don't like try to get a crease. I mean, you can if you want to, because then it would look more like that dressed stone. But if you're going for more of a little bit of a rough and ready, which is kind of what I'm going for, then the stonemason would not have spent a lot of time getting those edges crisp. And also, if you look really close, see if I can get it up here. This, oh, it keeps wanting to pop up, that's okay. This one has started to fray a little bit right there. That's okay. That's not a big deal. I mean, if you felt like it, you could come in right now with your brush, just a tad bit of glue, and you could just put it there. And using the glue and the brush, just kind of push that back down again. You can do the same when it comes time to paint, when it comes time to grout. At any point, you can smooth those fraying edges out. And I mean, this whole project is designed for being imprecise. Somebody I used to work with who used to be in the military said they had a saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. And, you know, basically that means don't be so worried about getting it exactly right that you never get it done at all. So I kind of liked that. I was like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. Oh, see, that to me is fine right there. And it only takes a minute for the glue to grab. You will find yourself sitting and pressing and waiting a few, you know, a moment each time. So now that we've gotten to a point where we've opened up a little, we can get like crazy and just say, hey, you know, let's just say they found a nice, really big stone, and they were like, yeah, I want to use this in my fireplace. So the bigger the stones, the less time and effort it's going to take to cover your fireplace. So my stones along here so far have been relatively small. So we could take something like this right here. So I want to go here, and it's going to wrap around just about like that. And then it's going to come around, and you can see it's going to start covering that side. So how big the stones are and how you vary them is entirely up to you. If you want them to be more uniform in size and shape, that is certainly something you could do. So here we are. Let's get some glue on this bad boy. Like I said, I'm not being shy with the glue. And this is the wood glue, the yellow wood glue. So I think I've given you enough of an idea of how I do this. I'm going to continue to do this all the way around the edges. And then I will show you what I've done. And then when we come back, we will fill it in. And we'll start filling in these big areas. Good morning. So I had let this set up overnight, just to make sure that the stones are nice and set in place. So this is where we're at. I've done all the edges, as you can see. Originally I was going to do the back of this one, but this corner right here would require a bunch of patching because I didn't quite set it square when I was doing it. That's the problem of trying to do things on camera. You can't always get a good view of what you're doing, so you mess up. But be that as it may. So now I did start with just one right here. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see, to be honest with you, there's a little bit of a pencil line right there. And sometimes for me personally, it helps if I'm thinking about a stone that I want to fit somewhere and I'm looking. Sometimes if I just kind of draw out a shape, just kind of, you know, hey, what if the stone looked kind of like that? That's probably not the best. And all this gets covered up, so you know, you can do, and I'm only using Sharpie so that y'all can see what, you know, my thought process is looking like. For here, I would bring it out because otherwise that would be pretty small. And that sometimes just helps me think about it, see what it would look like. So what I'll do is I'm just going to continue. I'm going to fill in this area. I'm going to just fill in all these areas and on the sides too. And I'm going to make sure to make stones that kind of cross this boundary here to help sturdy it up. And I'll show you the result when I come back. Okay, so I'm back. And as you can see, it looks like a giraffe. So anyway, got all the stones cut out, glued on, and then down here you can see I've been experimenting with the grout. The old grout that I had, of course, dried up and went away. So I had to, my wonderful husband ran out and got me some more. But basically what it is we got this stuff right here, damp plastic wood. And it's basically all-purpose wood filler, shrink and crack resistant. Those are the things you need, wood filler, shrink and crack resistant. That is what I'm using for the grout. And you're going to get it a little bit on the stones. Don't worry too much about it. The idea is just to get it down in between the stones. And you can see the difference that it makes from this to this. It just adds some texture. It actually looks and feels a little bit like grout. It's filling in the edges of the cardboard. Turn it around here, you can see where it's all rough right here, but where the grout is filling in, looks a little more realistic. It's going to fill in these gaps right down here as well. It might lift and crack a little, like right there. That's okay. That's just the cardboard. We'll come back in when it's nice and dry and we'll fill that back in with a little bit more. So basically the next thing you want to do, and this is optional, you do not have to grout this. You could just paint it and it would be just fine. It will certainly take less time not to, because this is a very time-consuming process. So yeah, basically all I do is I have a cup of water and I just stick my finger in, and this stuff is very sticky. I mean, it's just like, and then we take it, let's see if I can get it right here so you can see it. And then I just take it and kind of smush it right in those cracks. And then I can take a little bit of water and it just helps to smush it in there. I try to wipe it off the stone as quickly as I can. So there. Just like that. You're just going to work it in, and you just trying to get the texture on there. You don't want it to be too thick. This stuff dries, because we're putting it on so thin, it dries extremely fast. So by the time you're done with this, it'll be ready to paint. Basically, you know, the last little bits you do, let them sit for maybe 15 minutes, and then you should be able to just go ahead and paint it. So I'm going to go and continue with my grouting here. And then this is probably going to take another couple hours. So this is the kind of thing where you sit down in front of Netflix and binge watch while you grout this thing. Okay, so it's the next day, and as you can see, I have gotten all the grouting done. And like I said, this is a totally optional step. In the cabin fireplace, I did not grout, and it looks just fine. In the prototype, I did grout. So, you know, 6 1/2 dozen. Main reason to grout was because of these raw cardboard edges right here. So here it is next to our snow extra fly snow Barbie doll. So you could get a good idea of scale. So it's a beast. And this is a perfect sitting height for them, as we demonstrated.